Tickets are on sale, folks. We keep saying it, and we can't wait to come out to the west coast of Canada. Edmonton, September 19th. Tickets are on sale. We're doing that show at $99.10. Vancouver, Biltmore Cabaret. Tickets are on sale there. That's September 21st. We can't wait to come out there. It's going to be a really fun time. And we got some great guests lined up. Should I say it? All right, I'll say it. Jeremy from Death Ed is going to be our guest in Edmonton.
Sick.
He is a funeral home director and a public speaker who talks all about getting your shit in order and getting ready to die. And he's an embalmer as well. So he knows a thing or two about shoving tubes into corpses and filling them with purple goo.
Guys, I have a daughter. I need to fucking get my death shit in order.
Well, it'll be a good conversation with Jeremy over at Death Ed. And then in Vancouver, fuck, I'm so excited for this. In Vancouver, we are having for the live show, for the very first time for a full episode, although this will be technically the third time this person's been sort of on the show.
Sort of, yeah.
Caden tonight, a 17-year-old boy who is living with dwarfism. He's such a little fucking charmer. And his father, Jim, is going to be with him because technically he's not allowed in the bar, but he's going to have a chaperone. So don't worry, we're not going to break any laws by getting the little guy drunk. So that'll be really fun. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fucking killer show. So tickets are on sale. Get them now.
Do you think Caden will tell us? Do you think he'll be okay? I get the sense that I feel like with his parents, they've got a pretty great relationship. So I feel like he'd be pretty open to this. But do you think that he'll tell us how many drinks he needs to get drunk?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't find out. But I shouldn't actually joke about that.
We're not allowed to joke about that.
No,
Liquor laws prohibit us from making that joke.
Yes.
We only draw the line at the law.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the line for us.
Here's some crazy shit that was in the news this week. This blew my mind. Man, we are living in the future, baby. This was this hit many news outlets, but scientists grow a quote synthetic embryo with brain and beating heart without a single egg or a single sperm.
Not in a human though. Was it a mouse?
It was mice. But I mean, if we're doing with mice.
So it was a mouse embryo.
So scientists from the University of Cambridge have created model embryos from mouse stem cells that form a brain, a beating heart, and the foundations of all the other organs of the body. And it represents a new avenue for recreating the first stages of life. So this, when I read the article, I was like, oh my God, we're going to be creating humans in test tubes. But it's not quite. I mean, we potentially could get there, but that's not what this is for. But what this is for is actually quite interesting yet. So the team of researchers led by Professor Magdalena Zenrika Goetz developed the embryo model without eggs or sperm. And instead, they used stem cells. We all love stem cells. The body's master cells.
Remember when everybody didn't like stem cells?
I know, yes. Oh, yeah, there was a time. So these master cells can develop into almost any cell type in the body. So by guiding the three types of stem cells found in early mammalian development to the point where they start interacting, the researchers mimicked natural processes in the lab. The scientists were able to get the stem cells to, quote, talk to each other by inducing the expression of a particular set of genes and establishing a unique environment for their interactions.
Guys, I already have a script for a sci-fi movie based on this, and I'm wondering, I feel like this already exists. So because you guys are more movie buffs than I am, let me know if this is already a plot in a movie. So this takes place in the year 2150. And there's a class of people called the parentless. And these are people who have been born and raised in test tubes. But the primary function was that they were born and raised for their organs to be harvested just to be used in transplants because the population's getting sicker and there's not enough healthy organs. So they grow these people and they keep them protected in these like tubes until they're ready to harvest their organs.
Dude, it's half Matrix.
It's like the Matrix meets After Yang meets Repo Man.
Oh, After Yang, dude.
It's so good.
Wow.
So good.
So good.
Actually, you should watch After Yang and then we should talk about that movie on this show because it is
so good.
A, one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. And B, it is a movie that made me think about what it means to be sentient more than any other film I've ever seen. It's
I saw the
truly
trailer
beautiful.
and
Really
I
good.
got that from that.
But
It looks
really
really
good.
good.
So the stem cells. By the way, Brian, love that movie idea.
Should we write the script?
Fuck yeah, dude.
All right,
like
let's
I'd
do it.
watch that. That movie sounds baller. And then you can have like, there's like 2 of these bodies floating in these test tubes, and they're the tanks are next to each other,
Yeah.
and they're really hot, and they fall in love, but they're in love through the glass.
There's
Through the
reaching
heat-
and
the
touching.
heat
Yeah,
signature.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love.
You know what would be even crazier though? The opening scene is one of the bodies in the test tube and they are like conscious
Yeah.
and they're reaching out and the doctor's coming up to like chart them and like write down like, oh yes, like the heart is fully developed.
Yeah.
And the guy reaches out and he's like, what am I?
Yeah.
And
And then when they realize what love is, that's like their hearts start to change.
Yeah.
And their hearts change to a point where like they're no longer apt for transplant because they're just so filled with love.
Right, like the
Because they
Grinch.
grow 3 sizes bigger. Guys, this is a fucking sick movie.
I feel like this is actually just I feel like this is just like an amalgamation of many movies.
It is, yeah,
that we've already seen and loved.
I mean, what movie isn't?
yeah, right? Exactly.
So the stem cells self-organized into structures that progress through the successive development stages until they had beating hearts and the foundations of the brain. They also had the yolk sac where the embryo develops.
Did you just say yolk?
Yolk, yeah. I mean, that is how you pronounce. I mean, I know people
don't
say
think
yolk,
so.
but it's yolk.
I don't know.
How do you
about
say
that.
how do you say
Yeah,
the
yeah.
word that's spelled FOLK?
Folk.
I love folk music.
It is folk music.
No, it's not.
It is.
Shut the fuck up.
I know people say folk, but a lot of people say folk.
Because
Those
they're
people-
reading the word and they don't know
Those
how to
people
pronounce
should
it.
be put down.
No. So the yolk sac, where the embryos develops and gets nutrients from it in its first weeks. So unlike other synthetic embryos, the Cambridge developed models reached the point where the entire brain, including the anterior portion, began to develop. Which just like I mean, that doesn't really make sense to me how that's fucking possible. This is a further point in development than has been achieved in any other stem cell derived model. So I think I see this is kind of the thing that people were like, stem cells. Ooh, I don't know. This is kind of the stuff that they were afraid of.
I think I think the controversy around stem cells was that when they
It was cloning, wasn't it?
No, it was that when we started using stem cells, they've since the reason that they're not controversial anymore is because we don't have to obtain them this way anymore. We've figured out different ways, but we used to have to get them from fetuses, from aborted fetuses or like ectopic pregnancies or whatever.
Really?
That was the controversy, was that you
Yeah.
were basically getting them from like a human that would just never just didn't make it. And that was the controversy. And then
I mean, it wasn't gonna make it.
but
So,
then
like,
we
put it to use. You know?
yeah, I mean
I don't know. I don't know.
I generally agree
what
with
are
that.
they-
I also can see the
Sure.
I don't know, kind of
Sure.
like, because it's kind of like it's sort of like, the conversation that we had about like what happens to your body after you die,
Right,
and,
and
like,
you get
that whole death trade shit.
Right, and you're just
You know?
sitting in a chair and they just blow your fucking bits,
Exactly.
your body to bits with an
Yeah.
IED.
So you can see why people might
I get it.
feel uneasy
Yeah, I get
about it. But I think we've since found a myriad of ways to obtain stem cells that don't involve fetuses.
I feel like there's like a how do you say that word? Foie gras joke in there?
Foie gras.
Foie gras.
I feel like there's
Foie
one of those
gras.
jokes in there.
Foie
Something
gras.
isn't that like unborn or like
no.
young?
No.
Foie gras
Foie
is,
gras is force feeding
Oh.
ducks and geese
It's
with fat.
What's horrific. Yeah.
What's the when they
Well, I don't want to say. I don't want to.
you gonna say? Apparently, it's not horrific.
Apparently, they love it. Apparently, the geese are like, "Give me that fucking tube."
that's
I
what
am
high end
so-
restaurants say so that you don't feel bad.
Maybe
so
that's it.
skeptical of that.
Hey, I don't know, man. I don't know.
what's
I'm
the,
just
like-
saying they run to the tubes, I guess.
What's the type of
Oh
meat
my
that's like
God.
pulverized young baby cattle or whatever?
That's
Veal.
veal,
Yeah,
right?
or
Yeah,
venison.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's nasty.
it's
Chicken wings, same thing.
Guys, I'm vegan now.
not a bad idea.
Here's where this could come in handy. This technology, according to the team, the results could help researchers understand why some embryos fail while others go on to develop a healthy pregnancy. So kind of in line with some of the stuff that you and Kyler were going through recently. In addition, the results could be used to guide and repair and the development of synthetic human organs for transplantation, which is also really fucking cool, considering we're at like a massive shortage for transplant.
That's one step away from this sci-fi plot.
It is. The study, which is the result of more than a decade of research that progressively led to more and more complex embryo-like structures, was reported this week in the journal Nature. Quote, our mouse embryo model not only develops a brain, but also a beating heart, all the components that go into on to make up the body, said Zenrika Goetz, professor of mammalian development and stem cell biology in Cambridge's Department of Physiology, Development and Neuroscience. She said, quote, it's just unbelievable that we've got this far. This has been the dream of our community for years and major focus of our work for over a decade. And finally, we've done it. A dialogue between the tissues that will form the embryo and the tissues that will connect the embryo to the mother is necessary for the healthy development of a human embryo. So 3 different stem cell types begin to form in the first week following fertilization. One of these will eventually develop into the bodily tissues, while the other 2 support the embryo's development. One of these extra embryonic cell types will become the placenta, which connects the fetus to the mother and provides oxygen and nutrients. The second is the yolk sac, where the embryo grows and where it gets nutrients in early development. So many pregnancies fail at the point when the 3 types of stem cells begin to send mechanical and chemical signals to each other, which instruct the embryo on how to develop properly. So Professor Goetz said, many pregnancies fail around this time before most women realize they're pregnant. This period is the foundation for everything else that follows in pregnancy. If it goes wrong, the pregnancy will fail. Professor Goetz's group in Cambridge has been studying these earliest stages of pregnancy over the past decade in order to understand why some pregnancies fail and some succeed. She said, quote, the stem cell embryo model is important because it gives us accessibility to the developing structure at the stage that is normally hidden from us due to the implantation of the tiny embryo into the mother's womb. So like we're sort of getting to see this thing happen in front of us. Crazy. Whereas typically it becomes hidden from science because of the way that the
which I bet will, which I would imagine one of the one of the goals of looking at that would be trying to figure out if there are any interventions that can be created in order to make the likelihood of a pregnancy higher in that stage. Mm-hmm. So it's like, so like for Kyle and I, for example,
and then Elon Musk can chill out on the whole, just fucking pumping out kids everywhere.
He's got like 15 kids.
He's going hard on that.
Because if you go, if you were saying, with Kyle and I, we're trying to get pregnant, and like, who knows if she, I'm a little bit fuzzy on like when this process is and like if you would miss your period or whatever, but if it's in this like super early stage and it just like doesn't happen, and like those in like you never even get to the place where you would even start to consider or think maybe that you're pregnant, that you would go, okay, well, we're trying to get pregnant and we know that maybe we've been having trouble, so an intervention would be like, oh, well, we know from this research that if you take XYZ, whether it's like a simple supplement or whether it's like a medication that gets created because of that, and they know that the embryo needs this like extra thing to make it more viable, that like you could then take that prophylactically to increase your chances, which would reduce the necessity of doing like IVF or ICSI or something like that, which is like a huge financial burden and inaccessible for a lot of people because of the financial burden.
It makes me think of I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg talk about the philanthropic work that he's doing with his wife. So his wife's a doctor and she's a biologist, and a lot of the things that they want to study in the body, like this is this sort of perfect example of that. They happen within the body or in cells or in tissue, and it's impossible to observe in a lot of these situations. But using.
Oh, it was like he was talking about the brain, like brain synapse firing. That you
Yeah.
like, can't see that.
And so they were talking about ways to use machine learning models and
Right.
like technology to be able to model these things. So it sounds like creating like the most model and doing this. I'm sure that there's a lot of ways to analyze the data and sort of then predict different paths or like these new drugs or things that will be able to help either expedite something or fix something or do whatever. It's really interesting that we're at this like phase in like the evolution of our species where we're able to now use other technologies to understand things in ways that we'll never be able to understand, but will give us these sort of answers and things that we can do to achieve the desired outcome in spite of the fact that we still don't know how it works, which is crazy.
Yeah. I was like, this is a little off topic, but I was watching this video the other day. It was a Vox thing on this laser that's in.
I saw that. Yeah, it was like the super laser that basically sort of gives us a insight into the cores of planets.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool video.
And that one of the researchers there was creating computer models.
Yes.
And it was like she was trying to use the model to create a process that happens in certain matter at certain temperatures and pressures.
Yeah. So it was like oxygen like molecules, hydrogen molecules,
Nitrogen,
like molecules of iron, and like when they're under such incredible pressure, like in the center of the Earth or the center of Jupiter, these atoms, the atoms of these elements that they were looking at, they do really weird things, right? Like it was like I think iron like turns into this volcanic kind of liquid,
into just like a flowing liquid,
which they think is what actually and that flowing liquid has like a circular sort of like the jets in a jacuzzi. And that's what causes the
huge red spot
magnetic poles on planets.
And that water turns into like a diamond shaped block of ice.
Hot black ice.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but what she was doing with the computer models was that she was trying to recreate what happens in like it was something like 100 millionth, like 300 millionths of a second of like a process that happens with these molecules and how they shift form in under these pressures and temperatures. Yeah. And it was like a warehouse sized server farm
supercomputer
that takes like an hour to generate this like fraction of a 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 second of a process.
It was one of the largest supercomputers on the planet that is doing this model, and it
really interesting.
And it takes days and days and days for it to just create like one short little like recreation.
Man, data science is so interesting now.
It's mind melting.
Computers can tell you things that you can't understand.
Yeah.
On your own. And
like who to vote for.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's in the voting machines themselves. Right. It just chooses for you.
Yeah. Let's talk about drugs. Love talking about drugs. Psychedelic drug helped people with alcohol use disorder reduce drinking. Which drug do you think it was?
MDMA.
Nope.
Psilocybin.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. The fucking psilocybin, the drug that seems to, the medicine that seems to have many different uses. It's becoming quite apparent,
and it's so infrequent.
It's crazy.
I think that these people did like 3 or 4 experiences or something.
Yeah. So 2 doses of psilocybin pills, along with psychotherapy, helped people with alcohol use disorder reduce drinking for at least 8 months after their first treatments. Results from the largest clinical trial of its kind have shown. Quote, "There's really something going on here that has a lot of clinical potential if we can figure out how to harness it," said Dr. Michael Bogenschutz, the director of the NYU Langone Center for Psychedelic Medicine and NYU Langone Health, who led what may be the first randomized control trial of psilocybin for alcohol use disorder. During the 8-month trial, 93 men and women ages 25 to 65 were chosen to receive either 2 pills of psilocybin doses or antihistamine pills, which the researchers used as a placebo. They all also participated in 12 psychotherapy sessions. All of the volunteers were averaging 7 alcoholic drinks at a time before the trial. More than 80% of those who were given the psychedelic treatment had drastically reduced their drinking 8 months after the study started, compared to just over 50% in the antihistamine control group, according to the results published in JAMA Psychiatry.
So what was it again? 80 something versus 50?
80% over 50% in the control group.
So with that control group, obviously if they're giving them antihistamines, then the dose that they're giving them of psilocybin obviously isn't enough to like have them experience some sort of like psychedelic trip. Or
I think I can't remember, but I remember an excerpt from that article where one of the guys that they profiled was like, as soon as I took it, I knew I wasn't in the antihistamine trial. So I think they're giving them a pretty...
And there were some people that actually left because they were like, that was too intense.
Okay, so they are having an experience.
But the out of all those people, out of the 80% who reduced their drinking and out of the 50% who reduced their drinking in the control group, at the end of the trial, half of those who received the actual psilocybin had quit drinking altogether, compared to about 1/4 of those who were given the antihistamine. So,
and 8 months is that's a significant, for somebody who's dealing with alcoholism, 8 months is a significant amount of time.
Yeah, the new research is part of a global movement exploring whether psychedelic assisted therapy, including therapy using ketamine and psilocybin, the active components in magic mushrooms, can be a more effective and alternative to addiction and mental health treatments. Bogenschutz and his team specifically set out to test whether or not psilocybin, in addition to sessions of therapy, could cut cravings and help people with alcohol use disorders stay sober. Earlier research from institutions around the world had indicated that psilocybin has the potential to treat a variety of addiction disorders, including alcohol use disorder, opioid use disorder, and addiction to even smoking. Quote, it's really in line with accumulating evidence that psilocybin and other psychedelics that work in a very similar way in the brain can be effective in treating different types of addiction, said Matthew Johnson, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral science at Johns Hopkins University, who was not involved in the trial.
Do you guys think that, I imagine that this is hard. So we went to Steve-O last night. Steve-O was live here in Halifax.
Yeah, Steve-O from Jackass is touring his bucket list tour. He came to Halifax last night.
Very funny.
It was fucking hilarious. Big shout out to Jill, our patron, who joined us last night.
That was awesome having Jill there.
Yeah.
He mentioned, he was talking about this stunt that he was going to do where they were going to give him an anesthetic, and basically the goal was to run as far as he could before he, or bike as far as he could before he succumbed to the anesthetic.
Yeah.
But Steve-O, who is a recovering drug addict or
recovering everything
I think
addict.
Right.
Yeah, he was addicted to everything.
So, and he was like, I basically didn't want to do this stunt because the propofol that is used as the typical anesthetic, he was worried that would, cause him to relapse. And so I'm wondering about treatments like this for alcoholism when people are addicted to substances and then they want to avoid using drugs. Is a psychedelic experience something that some people would want to stay away from, even if it was proven to have this medicinal
effect? For the reason being probably that there's the stigma attached to psychedelic substances being viewed as quote unquote drugs, right? But
as a drug in line with
as a drug in line with a drug that you abuse,
right? Because they would still take like Tylenol, for example, because it's like prescribed by a doctor.
That's
but
right.
like the psychedelic, they're like, oh, well,
that's an illegal scheduled substance. That's a drug. But here's the thing: there's been tons of data and studies that have gone to show that things like LSD, things like psilocybin, they don't have they're not the type of substances that have addictive properties to them. You don't do LSD and then the next day go, fuck, I can't like, let's get the LSD going again.
It's not that kind of experience.
No, you really are like, whew, that was something. I need a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I should really let that sink in for a while.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not being used like quote unquote recreationally.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Right?
But
because
even if it is when it's being used recreationally, it's like,
even then you still have
an experience.
Yeah. But I mean, like MDMA, I could see MDMA having a case for being addictive. Like there is something you know, there's definitely something about that experience that is like, oh, I wouldn't mind doing that again.
It is definitely a heavily stigmatized thing that I think that notion that you brought up, Brian, that's a major headwind for it being adopted, but a major tailwind for it being adopted, I think, and for psilocybin and psychedelics in general making its way, if it can be shown to treat something like alcoholism. Alcoholism really has a huge gap in terms of like actual treatment that isn't like talk therapy or psychotherapy,
along with opioid addiction and all those things, right?
So where when you're talking about psilocybin in the case of like an antidepressant, it's like it's competing. It's competing head to head with major drug manufacturers who are very invested in people taking, and I don't mean this in like a conspiracy way. I just mean like, you know, they're a fucking company. They make a drug. They want you to take it. Those drugs are taken on a regular basis every single day. And psilocybin comes in and goes like, hey, you only have to do me like every like 4 to 6 months. And maybe you only need to do it a few times and then that might last you for a very long time. Yeah. So there's a competition aspect there. Whereas with alcoholism, it doesn't face that headwind of having to compete with like a drug that, you know, an alcoholic might need to take every day to stay sober.
Yeah. And the other thing too, like with Ibogaine, for example, there's people that are utilizing Ibogaine as a way to heal folks who are like addicted to heroin, and the studies that are coming out about it is that like Ibogaine is the type of thing where you do it once, you have one experience of Ibogaine, you come out of it on the other end, and the chances are that you go, okay, I don't want any more heroin. I'm done. I'm done with that. And so you just do it once and then you don't do it again. It's not like you're going to go, should do that Ibogaine again.
I mean, speaking to the stigma that you brought up, Bri, remember when we talked to, I'm totally blanking on his name now. Andrew.
Dude, there's like
super early.
We almost have, we're about to publish our 600th
Vancouver
episode.
Successful business guy, crack addict.
Oh yeah.
Andrew.
Oh, the Wolf of Wall Street of Canada.
Yeah. I can't. I'm blanking on his last name now. Anyway, we talked to this guy, and he worked with like the addiction, like the whatever the addictions, like the national addictions like organization is for Canada, and he said offline. Now I'm bringing it online. That he was like, well, I can't have this stance publicly because it's not in line with the organization, but ayahuasca is basically how I came to sobriety.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the stigma there is like, he's not allowed to say that, even though in his experience and in many people's experience, it is the path to sustained recovery for a lot of people.
Why do you guys think that psychedelics seem to like open people's eyes to this like more quote unquote better ideal version of themselves? Like why does it seem to, and is it anecdotal where you just seem to hear about the good experience? Like, are there also these bad experiences too?
I mean,
or is
like,
it
I think what like some of the research that's going into this is like the literal like repaving of neural pathways. So like, you know, we have these, we fall into these habits, we fall into these like modes of thinking, we fall into these like world viewpoints where we see the world with a certain lens, and then these psychedelics go in there and they're literally just retraining and like like they're altering the neural pathways that have been like stuck in these grooves, and then all of a sudden you're out of it and you're like, whoa, fuck, I see the world differently now. I feel about other things differently than I had before I went into this experience. And so like, I think those are the things that my assumption, it's, you know, I don't know. I'm not a fucking scientist, but that's my assumption.
I think that we, and especially if you, using alcoholism as the example, since it's the subject that we're on, when you are in your normal state, which is like either sober or for an alcoholic drunk or whatever that functioning zone is that a lot of alcoholics are in, it's very easy to lie to yourself.
Oh yeah.
Super
Yeah.
easy to lie to yourself. Subconsciously too. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think we are very good at lying to ourselves subconsciously, where we know that we have a fault
Yeah.
and we never even face it because subconsciously we just lie to ourselves about it so easily on a daily basis. When you have a psychedelic experience, it's impossible to tell that lie.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
cannot tell that lie to yourself anymore because you're so reflective that you face it and you are sort of forced into this contemplation of the thing that you now realize you've been lying to yourself about.
Yeah.
So I think you have a kind of like a self-reckoning, and then it becomes, for at least an extended period of time after that experience, now when that lie comes up that would have been subconscious before, it comes to the surface and you realize that you're lying, and then it becomes really challenging to tell that
Like
lie
therapy.
to yourself.
That's it's something that came up in this. I was telling you guys I had this intake session with this occupational therapist, and she was asking me about things that I do in my life that help me feel better. And one thing that came up was
Jerking off.
I was like,
Skyjacking.
Skyjacking.
I was like, I don't know if this is like, well, like, is this weird to say in the setting? But taking mushrooms actually is one of those things that I know,
Yeah.
like once a year or twice a year, if I take a good dose of mushrooms and I'm in the right setting, the day after things are just a little bit more clear for me. And anecdotally, my experience when I'm feeling that is that all of the things that like cause me stress, like the superficial things in my life, like whether it's like work related or relationship related, I feel like one of the feelings I get when I'm on mushrooms is this sort of like smallness to my life and the importance of it on the global scale of things.
Mm.
But it reminds me of the importance of also the people that I'm with in that moment. So there's like this sense of presence, but this sense of like insignificance, and this sense of like the only thing that is important in my life right now are my relationships, like friendships and family. And so all of those things that cause that peripheral stress, it's just like, well, that doesn't really fucking matter. And like, you can tell yourself that on a day when, a day like any other day when you're just dealing with all that stress, it's easy for you to try to tell yourself that those things don't really matter, but it's hard for you to really feel it.
Yeah.
When you're on psychedelics, it can be a lot easier to feel. It's like, goes back to that point about the you can't lie to yourself.
You just can't, like the thought comes up
Yeah.
and you just go, I can't ignore that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like listening to a TED Talk. You listen to a TED Talk and you're reminded of all those things you just said, and you go, "Oh yeah, right. I should incorporate those things into my life, like meaningful communication and more compassion and building relationships to be happy in the end." And that's a reminder, and those are great. But like the mushrooms, it's like that reminder. So it's like you're watching the TED Talk, but also you flooded with the feelings, and you're like, oh yeah. It's like if you could download TED Talks into your fucking nervous system. Like it's TED Talks for your nervous system. Plus psychedelics are TED Talks for your nervous system.
Plus the TED Talks. The problem with TED Talks.
That's good.
The problem with TED Talks is then you're watching them on YouTube, and then there's and then you get auto played Steve-O getting kicked in the nuts. 5 seconds after it ends, and you go, oh, that's funny.
You go, yeah, that's a good point. And then you go, man, what's on Pornhub?
What if that was like, what if that was the psychedelic therapeutic experience was just to watch TED Talks on mushrooms?
Yeah, I mean, hey,
That
that could be that.
If you could hold your
I think you're
attention,
onto something there. So one of the people that took the study, Kotas, now 32, had a long history of drinking. He had his first alcoholic drink at age 12. That's quite young, and attended his first AA meeting by 16.
Wow.
Throughout college, he would start drinking liquor in the morning, planning 2-day hangovers into his schedule. By 21, he had entered his first stint into rehab. He tried everything to get sober, but nothing stuck, he said. And when he began the psilocybin trial at age 25, he was consuming almost 23 drinks in a single bender. Less than an hour into the first session, Kotas knew he was in the psilocybin group. He remembers a vivid scene of a glass bottle of alcohol in the desert. The bottle disintegrated, which he interpreted as a symbol of quitting drinking. He didn't have cravings after that, but the second and third sessions sealed the deal, he said. During the second session, he saw himself being cut with a sword, which he interpreted as killing his addiction. In the third, he envisioned scaling a mountain, a symbol of overcoming his unhealthy relationships with alcohol. He compares his experience with psilocybin-assisted therapy to talking to an antibiotic for strep. He compared his experience with psilocybin-assisted therapy to taking an antibiotic for strep throat. He said, quote, "You take the pills to wipe it out and it's gone," said Kotas, who has stayed sober since the trial and founded a nonprofit organization for psychedelic mental health research.
Whoa, crazy. We should have him on the show.
Pretty fucking cool. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool.
That must have been a decent dose, though, to have those like, those like pretty vivid hallucinations.
I haven't had that experience in a long time.
Yeah.
So how psilocybin may rewire the brain is a part of this article. After the first 2 sessions, the 93 participants were offered sessions of psilocybin, either third doses or the first ones for the control group and additional therapy. Participants who received psilocybin 2 times within the 12 weeks reported meaningful experiences or visions that changed their relationships with addiction. Quote, "Everyone experiences it different," Bogenschutz said. People's brains appear to be able to kind of tailor the effects of the experience depending on what they come to the situation with and what they need out of the experience.
Set and setting.
Researchers say they still don't understand to what extent such experiences work to reverse addiction, but it appears to play a very big role. The science shows that in virtually all psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy trials for substance use disorders, greater mystical experiences was associated with greater therapeutic change, said Dr. Chris Stouffer, an assistant professor of psychiatry at Oregon Health and Science University, who is leading clinical work on psilocybin through the VA Portland Health Care System and isn't associated with the new study. He said, quote, "Ultimately, we don't really know yet how this treatment works. So it's still up in the air, but there's some assumptions." Let's move. Oh yeah, go for it. You got to pee?
Super bad.
Oh wow, again. All right, we'll take a look. Well, this is a good time for an ad break.
If you're going, I'll go too.
Yeah, me too.
COVID is, I literally just flew back from Winnipeg last night. And I was there for a few days. I was speaking at a conference. Big shout out to Frontier School Division, largest school division in Canada.
Crazy.
Met a bunch of really cool people
there. I
there.
don't even know really what that means.
It basically, it doesn't really matter. It's basically a school board, but they are the umbrella of like almost every school in Manitoba.
They're like the Amazon of school boards.
Basically, yeah. It's fucking wild. But it was really nice to be on the road again, speaking.
On the road again?
It's been a couple of years. A lot of events stopped. A lot of events changed. But we're getting back into kind of the swing of things. Like me and my partner, we're going to go to a music festival this year down in California in about a month.
That's so irresponsible of you.
I know, and I can't fucking wait. So lots of things are back in full swing, and
we all have some trips coming up.
We do, yeah. I mean, we're going back on the road. Sick Boys hitting the road again. We got some college shows coming up. Algonquin, what's up? We're coming to you. It'll be really fun. Well, here's another event that's happening that we're all very excited about. The World Gravy Wrestling Championships returned.
Oh my God, dude, I've been waiting for that specific event.
Yeah, a host of wrestlers took part in the 12th annual World Gravy Wrestling Championships at the Rosen Bowl Pub in Rosendale, Lancaster on Monday. The event sees competitors grapple in a pool of gravy in 2-minute bouts. Pub restaurant manager Carol Lowe said it was amazing to be back. The charity event, which raises funds for East Lancashire Hospice, was
Lancashire.
Lancashire. Hospice was canceled in 2020 and 2021 due to
COVID.
Yeah. Miss Lowe said people from far and wide want to watch and take part in its return, and the atmosphere had been absolutely bouncing, she said.
Wait. So this is
well, here, I get some photos for you.
But the reason why we're talking, oh my God. So I was what makes this Sick Boy relevant? But it was to raise money for the hospice.
What made it? I didn't even know that was what this was for. But what made it relevant was that I just wanted to talk about it. Katie, our friend out in Vancouver, sent me this. Events are back. That's why how this relates.
Okay,
so these, if you're not watching on YouTube, there's 2 fully grown gentlemen, one wearing a dress and the other one shirtless, and they are wrestling in gravy. Here's another one of a couple ladies going at it, just covered in gravy, kind of gross. This one looks, I mean, this is a crazy photo.
That's wonderful.
We've got two very burly men, and one looks like he's about to have his neck broken.
Yeah, he's about to be.
These are the champions. The champions. You've got the woman on the left.
He's dressed up as Ali G.
That guy looks just like Ali G.
He's dressed up. I think he's in costume for as Ali G.
Yeah. Either that or he is like exactly what Ali G was going for.
That is a sizable trophy.
I know. Yeah, I know. I mean, the trophy is like half the size of her.
Yeah, how many gallons of gravy do you think they can fit in the trophy?
Dude, that's a lot of poutine. That's a lot of willies. That's a year's
just
worth
like,
of willies.
is this just Katie staying plugged into like home news?
Oh, she loves it. Yeah, she's always sending me BBC articles. Katie's from London. So basically, people come in fancy dress, men and ladies, and they wrestle in gravy and get eliminated as the day goes on, Miss Lowe said. It's very messy. And the men's event was won by Lloyd Clarkson, who it looks just like Ali G here, and with Imogen Young taking the woman's title. So congratulations to Lloyd and Imogen.
How do you win? You just you have to submit the person in the pool of
gravy.
gravy.
How do you win Greco-Roman wrestling? I don't know.
Yeah.
You fucking slam them, points. Yeah.
Putting somebody on their back.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that this would make me want to eat poutine so badly.
It does kind of make,
man.
right?
Yeah.
This is a little bit more in line with our shit. U.S. life expectancy has dropped in 2021 for the second consecutive year.
I mean, that's you introduce a new thing that kills a bunch of people, and then
it's quite interesting fact in here about the last time we saw this happen. So, U.S. life expectancy dropped for the second consecutive year in 2021, falling by nearly a year from 2020, according to a government report released on Wednesday. In the first 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, the estimated U.S. lifespan had shortened by nearly 3 years. The last comparable decrease happened in the early 1940s during the height of the Second World War.
I think what's really important to note about that for the average person is that means nothing to their individual lifespan, and how long an individual is expected to live, because it's just skewed by new data. So when people are like, oh, in X, let's call it the year 1400, the average life expectancy was like 37 or something like that.
It wasn't because you were dying at 37.
It's because so many babies died.
Yes. Yeah.
And so many people dying at age 0 skew the statistic way lower.
Yeah.
Whereas people were living into their 60s and 70s regularly, but obviously we've come a long way. So I just want to put that in there because
well, no, like no, don't say that. Let's here, just we'll cut this out. Let me have a conversation with you, okay? When I bring this shit up, right? We're trying to fearmonger. So I don't want you telling these fucking people who don't get statistics that they don't have to worry that they're going to die 3 years earlier. We need them to be fucking afraid because being afraid sells.
Because fear sells.
Fear sells.
We literally talked about this in our last meeting that we need to be doing
and
this
we
more
keep
often.
telling you, Taylor, to stop telling these fucking muggles that listen, probably people who have cats, that they're going to die earlier. Yeah, you're right. We got to scare them. We got to scare them.
So tell me when we're coming in, and then I'll kind of backtrack.
All right, yeah, sure. So, all right, let's go back into it. We'll cut in here.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll remember to cut for sure.
Yeah. So people are dying like 3 years, nearly 3 years shortened life expectancy.
Well,
how scary is that?
I mean, super scary. You're going to want to, that means that you are going to want to get your shit in order.
That's right.
And you're going to want to go out there, live life, and spend your money on our Patreon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And it is a big reason why you want to buy tickets to our live show in Edmonton, so you can be prepared when we talk to Jeremy at Death Ed
100%.
about how to put your ducks in a row, because you are going to die
3 years earlier.
Way sooner. 3 years, way sooner.
Yeah. And it's probably doing nothing but coming down.
Oh, that's
and honestly, if you have like parents or grandparents that are like 71, 72, and if they seem incredibly healthy right now, they're not.
No.
Like they're almost certainly going to die in the next year or two.
Yeah. So life insurance policies, start like jacking those up, right? Officials from the CDC blamed COVID for half the decline in 2021.
Only half.
A year when vaccinations became widely available, but new coronavirus variants caused waves of hospitalizations and deaths. Other contributors to the decline are longstanding problems like
cancer,
things we've been talking about a ton on the show: drug overdoses, heart disease, suicide, chronic liver disease. Cancer
Interesting.
wasn't in there. It's a dismal situation. It was bad before, and it's gotten worse, said Samuel Preston, a University of... Okay, just we'll cut it here. See what he said there? He said, it's a dismal situation, Taylor. It was bad before. It's gotten even worse. So he's really fucking ramped. Like,
so we really want to take those words and really play.
yeah,
those
just think about the words that we use and just ramp it up.
Yeah.
Right here, we'll
Horrifying, scary.
Okay.
Life expectancy is an estimate of the average number of years a baby born in a given year might expect to live, given death rates at that time. It is, quote, the most fundamental indicator of population health in this country, said Robert Hummer, University of North Carolina researcher focused on population health patterns. U.S. life expectancy rose for decades, but progress stalled before the pandemic. It was 78 years, 10 months in 2019.
For men or for everybody?
I guess for everybody.
So I feel like for women, it was like 83 or 84 or something.
Maybe in Canada. We kill it with the life expectancy.
Did they get Mr. Hummer's quote? I'm not sure if it's in this article, but I heard him on the news saying that we should be afraid, like be super afraid.
Yeah. I sorry, I just skipped a paragraph there. You're right. That is exactly what he said.
Okay. Right. Perfect. Yeah.
In 2020, it dropped to 77 years, and last year it fell to about 76 years in 1 month. The last time it was this low was 1996, back when we had that horrific event in 96, the 96 death blow to population life expectancy,
Which we're all familiar with.
I believe he also said that we were poised to have the darkest decade in the last 100 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. In all seriousness, it's kind of true. Declines during the pandemic were worse for some racial groups, and some gaps widened. For example, life expectancy for American Indian and Alaskan Native people saw a decline of more than 6.5 years since the pandemic began, and is at 65 years. In the same span, life expectancy for Asian Americans dropped by about 2 years and stands at 83.5. Experts say that there are many possible reasons for such differences, including lack of access to quality healthcare, lower vaccination rates, and a greater share of the population in lower paying jobs that require them to keep working when the pandemic is at its worst. It's likely the declines in 2020 and 2021 will stand as the first 2 consecutive years of declining life expectancy in the U.S. since the early 60s, the CDC officials have said.
Interesting.
So be afraid. Be very afraid.
I'm sad that I missed because I believe you guys had the conversation when I was in the hospital with Kylo when we were having Zaya, but then I missed the conversation with the demographer.
Oh man, yeah, and I'm too. I am too, because you're the one that set that up, and you were so excited for it.
Was that Sarah? Was her name Sarah?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, that was a wonderful conversation.
Because like just fun. Like the way that. Because although the statistic of like life expectancy isn't necessarily, or it definitely is not the be all end all for your individual life, it is fascinating to look at it from a population sense, from a zoomed out version, and go like, well, what does it mean what does it mean for a country to produce policy like pension age or something like that, for example. Because due to an aging population or a declining life expectancy number and stuff like that, like that type of like macro stuff is interesting because even though the life expectancy number might not directly be related to you, it will influence things that ultimately will directly affect you, like policy.
And the interesting thing though about like looking at things from the macro perspective is it oftentimes will lead to this like sort of one size fits all approach to to solving problems. And the thing that I think frustrates me most about like political solutions is that we have the technology and capability to look at things to look at things at more of a micro perspective and apply different solutions for different areas but we don't do it because we used to do this. We used to have to ride on a fucking horseback from our small city to the federal capital to like apply for this thing to happen.
Yeah.
And then
right
that was
after
the
we
thing.
got a vasectomy.
Yeah.
And how uncomfortable was that, right?
Oh my God. Oh, that was the bit that I was trying to remember to tell Kyla. Fuck. Yes.
Anyway,
Steve last night got a
it's just-
vasectomy and rode a horse.
That's
God.
what I find is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because this data really doesn't mean that much. You know,
yeah,
like,
I mean, like it's not going to affect you today, right now.
the one thing you can
Yeah.
look at the data and go, you just go, oh, something fucking happened that
Yeah, but
year.
it's both. It's
Yeah.
like it's both. It's that an individual's experience is not going to explain a group's experience, and a group's experience is not going to explain an individual's experience.
Totally.
And you have to know what both of them are because they're both influencing each other, and understanding like what balance to strike with that information is how you need to use data.
Let's move on to what the hell? Doctors shocked after man's head swells to double its size.
Holy fuck, dude! Oh man, that was my dream that I told you guys about.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I had this dream. I'll just summarize it really quickly. So I'm
People love hearing other people's dreams.
Okay, so
Go for it.
this is what happened. It's going to be very quick. Okay, so
Sim Hospital.
So
Do you guys ever play Sim Hospital?
I did not. I was not a big Sims guy.
Love it.
So I had a dream that we were recording. I think I saw a post from Justin Baldoni and his wife, like right before I went to bed.
Yeah.
We were recording with Justin Baldoni's wife. We were having this conversation
In the dream.
in the dream on the top of a mountain.
As
like
you
at the
would if you were
peak of a
recording
mountain,
with Emily. Yeah.
right? And we were in a cabin, and you guys, we sat down to record, and you guys both went, okay, we're gonna go. And I went, oh, okay. And then you were gone for 3 hours. And I was trying to like make small talk with Emily and like hang out and everything and divert from the fact that you guys have been gone forever.
Yeah.
So I go back inside, I get you guys, and you guys are just hanging out. And I'm like, what the fuck? We got to go record. So we go back out, we record. Then we're like, was that weird? And I was like, yeah, I think it was weird because you guys were gone for 3 hours, and she was fucking pissed. Then I go to brush my teeth. I brush my teeth. And then I start feeling my mouth swell up. And I turn to you and I go, is my mouth swollen? And I look back at the mirror, and my whole face is gigantic.
And you looked like this guy.
Whoa.
Dude, yeah, I felt like my whole head was like that. And I looked at you and I went, oh my God, I know. I could hear my skin cracking.
Ew.
Because it was swelling.
Ew.
And then I went, having a reaction.
Oh God.
And then you ran to get me an EpiPen. And
That's
then
like
I
one of
woke
those weird teeth dreams where like all your teeth fall out. And you're like, why is this happening? Doctors shocked that a man's head swells double its size. Here's a photo of the man's head, and that is swollen, and it looks probably double its size. Doctors, when a 33-year-old man returned from the beach with a swollen head, they were shocked to see his head. Canner Eric spent a few days enjoying the sun in the city of Zonguldak, Turkey. That is until 23rd of August when he looked in the mirror and saw his features were distorted. Canner quickly went to the Zonguldak Bülent Ecevit University, or BU.
Do you speak Turkish?
I do.
It is. There's a lot of Turkish listeners tuning in right now.
Dude,
So
Turkey loves me.
Turkey's social media, like main social media, that's where we get a lot of our social media presence is from Turkey's social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's no joke. So he was examined by multiple professionals at the ZBEU. And after investigation, doctors found that Canner's swollen face was caused by heat edema, which is typically only seen in the hands and feet. Here's another photo of him. Oh my God.
Wow. You know what he looks like?
He looks like a Joanna
exactly
Jacek after she got punched in the fucking face by Wei Li Zhang
1,000 times.
After investigation, it was heat edema. For anyone not familiar with the ailment, heat edema is caused by a buildup of fluids that move into the hands and legs. Speaking of the baffling case that occurred on Canner's head, Dr. Hokage said, "We have never encountered such a case before." So the buildup, the fluid builds up into usually the hands and the feet, and then gravity causes blood vessels to expand, and which results in the swelling. He said, quote, "We will publish this situation in rare heat-induced skin edema on the scalp at an international congress. After excluding the causes of localized edema on the body, we decided that the swelling on the forehead of the patient was heat edema. We started treatment for this. The healthcare professional went on to add that the incident occurred during a particularly humid period in Turkey. Quote, this happened when our patient was lying by the sea while he was wearing a hat that would prevent circulation, which, oftentimes you go to the beach, you want to wear a hat, keep that shade in your face, right? That's why it's an interesting case, said Dr. Hokage. Canner's case is now being studied by doctors as the man is said to be recovering at home. Heat edema can often occur in hot countries, and frequent exercise / massage of the affected area can help reduce symptoms. So how do you exercise your forehead? You just do this.
It's got to be just blood flow,
like moving your ears. Like according to the Mayo Clinic, mild edema usually goes away on its own, particularly if you help things along by raising the affected limb higher than your heart. Hard to do that with your head. Raise your head higher than your heart. What? Just stand.
So you're saying it's easier. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, you're doing it.
Well, no. What I
at
mean
all
is
times.
that, how do you do that if you're already doing that? Like if they're going, oh, you got heat edema, well, raise the part of your body over your heart. You're going,
it's already
fucking up, and my head's exploding.
I can go no further up.
I can't pull over any further.
I imagine that he was I think the thing that was omitted from this article is that he just walks around on his hands all the time.
He's just a hand walker.
And he was doing headstands at the beach. And
I'm surprised I never got heat edema biking in Bali.
Yeah.
Fucking 1,000 degrees in the middle of the day.
So anyway, folks, don't wear a hat when you go out into the hot sun because you'll get heat edema in your head, and also your life expectancy is a lot shorter than it was, and there's a good chance that we're going to be stealing your stem cells to create humans that live in jars, parentless humans that live in jars and fall in love with each other, and their hearts grow 5 times the size.
Harvest organs.
There was another article that I wanted to cover today, but we've run out of time because I got to go. But I can't wait to cover it next week. And it has to do with a really crazy lawsuit that has to do with an inmate and her pregnancy. And it is fucking crazy. Yeah. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We love each and every one of you, even if you're a cat lover and a cat owner.
And even if you're going to die sooner than you were, 2 years ago, we still love you.
We still love you.
But you should be afraid.
Very afraid. And so afraid that it forces you right now to get on your laptop or your phone, not while you're driving, pull over, and because we need you alive to buy the tickets to come to our live show in Edmonton, Vancouver.
Because it's a live show, not a dead show.
That's right. We need
Yeah, that was great.
So ticket links are in the episode description below, or you can check out the link in our Instagram bio. Can't wait to see you, Edmonton. Can't wait to see you, Vancouver. We're also going to be coming to Calgary. Stay tuned for the details for that show. If you want to support the podcast, you can join us over on Discord. Lots of fun stuff happening over there. You can help produce the podcast by giving us suggestions for articles to cover in the Feel Good Friday episodes. And why don't you leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts while you're at it? Lots of homework this week, so make sure you listen. There's going to be a test again next week where we'll remind you of this shit. And that's all I got to say.
And if you have anything that you want to send our way, any questions about our podcast, about our personal ethics and morals, then you can send that to letters@sickboypodcast.com. And if you want to be a guest on the show, go to sickboypodcast.com/contact. Fill out the form.
Also, let us know, do you say folk or folk?
I mean, you definitely say folk because no one says folk.
I just want to say a huge thank you to the people that I like to thank, but more importantly, I want to thank you, the listener, for being here with us today. If you made it this far, we can't do this without you. Otherwise, we'd just be doing this. We just do this.
We at each other.
We just wouldn't use mics.
Yeah.
We just do it and hang out.
Yeah.
And a huge thank you to Jeff Lonis, our manager, and to Rich O'Coin for the theme music. Also, the best live show performer ever. Rich, we love you.
So good. That is it for this week, folks.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jeremy, and this is Sick Boy.